Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. We are going to forensically reconstruct the disappearance of a 5-man merchant crew in October 1917, using strictly physical and historical data. This schematic shows the starting point for our investigation, the Zebrina. Laid down in Whitstable in 1873, she was a schooner-rigged, 3-masted sailing barge. By measuring her cargo hold and water displacement, naval records establish she had a berthing capacity of 189 tons. Shipwrights originally intended her to trade across the River Plate in South America. She ultimately spent her operational lifespan navigating the coastal logistics networks of Europe. By the autumn of 1917, the Zebrina was operating under the command of a Captain Martin, supported by a standard crew of 4 sailors. This photograph captures the Swansea docks in the early 20th century. The sheer density of masts demonstrates the enormous scale of regional maritime resource trade. The Zebrina arrived here to load her final recorded cargo, Swansea coal. She was an entirely unexceptional vessel. As a heavily utilized, routine tool of maritime logistics, her baseline operational profile makes her ultimate fate a severe structural anomaly. This topological map details her intended route. The Zebrina departed Falmouth, bound straight across the English Channel for Saint-Brieuc in France. 2 days later, her actual path deviated sharply eastward. Authorities located the vessel off course, south of Cherbourg at Rozel Point. This photograph illustrates the defensive geography typical of the Normandy and Cherbourg coastlines. The heavy stone breakwaters and jagged rock formations make it an incredibly hazardous area for a wooden hull to lose navigation. The physical reality of her discovery establishes our first rigid forensic constraint. The Zebrina was not discovered drifting at sea. She had run firmly ashore. This data matrix isolates the central physical paradox of the grounding. Despite striking the coastal shelf, her hull was entirely intact, yet her 5-man crew was missing. Furthermore, the authorities noted one highly specific point of mechanical failure, a distinct disarrangement of her rigging. Any valid historical theory regarding Captain Martin and his men must satisfy this exact evidence matrix. It requires an explanation for an empty vessel with an intact hull and a mechanical cause for the damaged sail lines. In October 1917, the most prominent geopolitical hazard in the English Channel was unrestricted submarine warfare, actively conducted by the German Empire. This image documents the specific tactical protocol U-boats employed against small barges. Submariners conserved their expensive torpedoes, preferring to surface and utilize their deck guns to sink civilian targets. This tactical schematic models the leading naval theory for the Zebrina. A U-boat surfaces nearby, intercepts the barge, and initiates a standard boarding procedure. Preparatory to sinking the vessel, the German boarding party extracts Captain Martin and his men, transferring them into the submarine. An Allied vessel abruptly appears on the horizon, forcing the U-boat into an immediate crash dive before the deck gun can be fired. The submarine flees, abandoning the empty Zebrina. For this timeline to hold true, it requires a major corollary assumption: that the U-boat was subsequently destroyed with the 5 Zebrina crewmen sealed inside, leaving 0 survivor records. Testing this hypothesis against our physical evidence, it succeeds in explaining the missing men and the perfectly intact wooden hull. However, it breaks down on the final constraint. Naval boarding actions do not damage a ship's upper ropes. The U-boat theory fails to organically explain the disarranged rigging without forcing the introduction of undocumented variables. In his 1932 publication, When Ships Go Down, investigator David Masters proposed a competing hypothesis driven entirely by natural hazards. Masters argued the catalyst for the entire event was a sudden, localized severe weather anomaly, a heavy squall striking the channel. This diagram visualizes the physics of sudden wind shear hitting the broadside sails of a 3-masted schooner. The rapid transfer of kinetic energy forces the vessel into a violent, extreme tilt. This places massive physical stress directly across the upper masts and rope lines. This specific stress vector directly aligns with the primary structural anomaly. It provides a precise mechanical cause for the disarrangement of her rigging. It also dictates the exact mechanism of the crew's loss. Caught in an extreme, sudden deck roll, 5 exposed sailors would be highly vulnerable to a sudden wave washing them entirely over the side. The meteorological hypothesis explicitly satisfies the complete evidence matrix. It accounts for the structural damage, the missing men, and the intact hull through a single, verifiable physical event, without relying on secondary naval sinkings. Despite having a clean physical explanation, the Zebrina is routinely categorized in modern popular literature as an unexplained maritime mystery. This occurs through historiographical degradation. This is the process where minor transcription errors compound over decades, eventually overwriting the factual reality of a historical event. This graphic tracks the primary textual drift. Historical cargo manifests prove the Zebrina was bound for Saint-Brieuc. Popular literature consistently misprints the destination as Saint-Brieuc, with an X. The second textual error is far more destructive to the forensic data. These authors frequently claim the ship was discovered drifting on the open ocean. The physical record proves she was found driven ashore. Relocating the vessel from a rocky beach to the deep ocean entirely erases the severe navigational context of her grounding. The resulting ghost ship narrative is an artificial construct. It is generated by modern writers ignoring concrete mechanical data to manufacture a dramatic narrative void. The Zebrina did not vanish into myth after October 1917. Authorities recovered the barge, repaired her sails, and returned her to the commercial coastal trade. Her actual, fully documented destruction occurred 36 years later, in 1953. She was moored at Velder Creek in Portsmouth when a localized fire broke out and completely consumed her weathered wooden hull. We have a definitive end for the vessel, but the 1917 incident remains entirely devoid of human witnesses. That absence of testimony forces our investigation to rely strictly on structural reality. The Zebrina proves that in forensic history, the truth of a maritime disappearance is rarely hidden in the subjective motivations of missing men. The exact answers are found in the silent data they leave behind, in the cargo logs, the water displacement, and the broken rigging.